Biden's call for new era of cooperation with Japan and South Korea likely to ramp up tensions with Beijing. From left, the South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, U.S. President Joe Biden, and the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida meet at Camp David on Friday. CNN, the United States, and two of its closest allies in Asia on Friday announced renewed commitment in a show of solidarity and force in the face of ascendant China. The leaders of the United States, South Korea, and Japan put aside a fraught history as three of the most powerful democracies in the Pacific, a move likely to add strength to the already tense relationship between the US and Beijing. President Joe Biden's summit with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and the South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol at Camp David was meant to serve as the show of force as the countries grappled with the persistent provocative behavior from North Korea and with China's military and economic aggressions. The announcement the leaders made afterward, including new military exercises and the hotline for crisis communications, reflected the current era of tension in Asia with like like-minded nations banding together in ways likely to only generate more animosity from Beijing. The leaders meet at Camp David on Friday. Biden's desire to strengthen alliances was the sign he doesn't see the tense easing anytime soon. Biden has sought to deepen ties with the allies in the Pacific amid the concerns of Beijing and thanked his counterpart for their participation, offering effusive praise for the political courage on display. While Biden stressed that the summit was not about China, the talks may stoke tensions with Beijing. On Friday, when asked about the trilateral meeting, Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Wang Wenbin said no country should seek its own security at the expense of other countries' security interests and regional peace and stability, adding the Asia Pacific region shouldn't be turned into the wrestling ground for geopolitical competition. In a statement released after the summit conclusion, the three leaders announced a new commitment to consort, a three-way hotline, a commitment to conduct annual military exercises and share intelligence, and the new annual trilateral summit. The summit will fall short of the producing a three-way collective defense agreement, but will underscore that a challenge to any one of the countries is a challenge to all of them. The senior administration official said that the new commitment to consult doesn't supersede either of the mutual defense treaties the US has signed with both nations. The gatherings marked the first time Biden is hosting foreign leaders at the Camp David retreat, a site of historic diplomatic negotiations for past president. The prospect of trilateral progress among the countries was not always given. The relationship between the Seoul and Tokyo is trailed by decades of tension and mistrust, including a dispute over forced labor by Japan during its occupation of Korea. But in the face of a persistent missile threat from North Korea and China's military maneuvering in the region, Kishida and Yoon has gone to great lengths to put aside those differences, including hosting a fence-mending summit in March, the first of its kind in 12 years. US officials have credited that worked as the key step in cementing the trilateral partnership once thought unimaginable. China's entire strategy is based on the premise that America's number one and the number two ally in the region can't get together and get on the same page. Lam Emanuel, the U.S. ambassador to Japan, said at the Brookings Institution on Wednesday, a time of unparalleled opportunity. Biden took a veiled swipe at Beijing's influence by taking special care to pledge the three nations' support for international law, freedom of navigation, and the peaceful resolution of disputes in the South China Sea, and our shared commitment to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and addressing economic coercion. This summit was not about China. That was not the purpose of a meeting, but China obviously came up. Biden said, adding that he hopes to speak with the Chinese President Xi Jinping this fall. Not to say we don't share concerns about the economic coercion or heightened tensions caused by China, but this summit was really about our relationship with each other and deepening cooperation across the entire range of issues that went well beyond just the immediate issues we raised. Biden said that quite frankly, the more peaceful and prosperous in the Pacific region would benefit everyone living there and around the world if you get it right. It's not just here, he said, it has the phenomenal impact. As you've seen from initiatives that we're announcing here today, just how committed we are to see this vision and take place. He said the leaders had laid in place a long-term structure for the relationship that will last and have the phenomenal impact not just in Asia but through around the world. Biden also explicitly condemned the threat from North Korea, including cryptocurrency money laundering and the potential armed transfers to Russia to assist in its invasion of Ukraine. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, this is the first summit I've hosted at Camp David as president. I can think of no more fitting location to begin the new era, our next era of cooperation, a place that has long symbolized the power of the new beginnings and the new possibilities, Biden said. In a joint statement, Biden, Kishida, and Yoon affirmed the three countries' trilateral partnership at what they called the time of unparalleled opportunity for our countries and our citizens, and at the hinge point of history when geopolitical competition, the climate crisis, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, and the nuclear provocations test us. This is the moment that requires the unity and the coordinated action from the true partners, and it is a moment we intend to meet together. Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United States are determined to align our collective effort because we believe our trilateral partnership advances the security and the prosperity of all our people, the region, and the world, the statement read. In a joint statement, the three leaders also expressed the concerns about actions inconsistent with the rule-based international order, which undermine regional peace and prosperity, while singing, singling out the dangerous and aggressive behavior supporting unlawful maritime claims that we have recently witnessed by the People's Republic of China in the South China Sea. And North Korea, the three leaders reaffirmed our commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, called the DPRK, in accordance with the relevant UNSC resolutions, and argued the DPRK to abandon its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. We strongly condemn the DPRK's unprecedented number of ballistic missile launches, including multiple intercontinental ballistic missiles launches and conventional military actions that pose a grave threat to peace and security on the Korean Peninsula and beyond, the statement said. We expressed concern regarding the DPRK's illicit cyber activities that fund its unlawful WMD and ballistic missile programs. US President Joe Biden hosted a joint press conference with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol during the Trilateral Summit at the Camp David, Thurmond, Raymond, US, August 18, 2023. Alliance building a cornerstone of Biden's foreign policy. The gathering at the secluded Wooded retreat highlights the Biden's mission of reinvigorating alliances in the wake of the tumultuous 4 years of his predecessor, a key argument from Biden's 2020 campaign that's extending into its re-election bid. From the start of his administration, Biden has sought to draw Asian allies like Japan and South Korea closer, in part to counter China. Biden's first foreign leader visit at the White House were Korea, Japan, and South Korea, and he visited the countries back to back in May 2022. The leaders held trilateral meetings on the sidelines of last year's NATO summit in Madrid and at the G7 in Hiroshima in May. But the Camp David gathering was the first stand-alone summit to the three leaders. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has held yearly meetings with his Japanese and South Korean counterpart, beginning with the sit-down in Annapolis, Maryland, less than 3 months into Biden's time in office. Biden has worked to foster his individual relationship and cooperation with South Korea and Japan. Biden and Kishida have touted the effort to strengthen their country's military alliance, and the two men have worked closely as the US has sought to rally allies against Russia's war in Ukraine. On Friday, Biden thanked Kishida for his leadership from day one on the response to Russia's invasion, which he said was critical for making it clear that the consequences for war extend well beyond Europe. If my memory served me well, I think it does, Mr. Prime Minister. We found ourselves in the circumstances where, when I called you about Ukraine, I didn't have to convince you of anything, Biden said. During a state visit for South Korea at the White House in April, Biden and Yoon announced a new agreement to deter North Korean aggression, including a U.S. commitment to temporarily deploy a nuclear-armed submarine to South Korea for the first time since the 1980s. The visit also included memorable personnel touches as South Korea's president's serenade dinner guest with a burb from American Pie. The president in return gifted Yoon a guitar signed by the musician responsible for the song. Don McLean, Yoon's father, Yoon Ki-jong, passed away on Tuesday, just days before the South Korean president was set to travel to the U.S. Despite the current closeness of all three nations, the White House has been mindful of a potential rollback to this progress under future administrations in all three countries. During Friday's news conference, Biden revoked the suggestion that his fellow leaders should be worried about the U.S. commitment to the Indo-Pacific, given former President Donald Trump's comment suggesting he'd seek to reduce America's footprint in the region should he win the 2024 election. This isn't just about one summit. What makes today's different is just it's actually launching a series of initiatives that are actually instructional changes in how we deal with one another. Biden said the story has been updated with additional reporting. CNN's Sam Possum and Betsy Clarin contributed to this report.